Hi, everybody. My name is Miriam, and this is Miranda. Not that you can see me pointing at her. And yeah, we're going to be presenting about changing behaviour through learner experience design. We work for Waitemata District Health Board. There we go. This is the biggest DHB in New Zealand. We cover 2 large areas and 2 hospitals in Auckland, Waitakere Hospital and North Shore Hospital. Counting the contractors and other peripheral organisations like hospices and things like that, we cover the e-learning part of training for approximately 10,000 medical professionals and associated administration staff. So this is part of our journey. Oops, let me do it on here. So hi, Miranda here. So what we're talking about is basically how we have changed our learner experience by making it easier for people in all kinds of ways to mostly do their mandatory training. So we have a number of mandatory training courses that everybody needs to go through, from the highest doctor to the to cleaners and orderlies, everybody. And we have changed a number of things based on feedback and just in general make a user experience design to optimize the steps they require to get into the courses, to reduce possibilities for user errors that we came across in answering our help emails, to make the compliance training also useful and enjoyable, so that in general that experience was nicer and people wouldn't mind so much doing it because it was very boring before. And then in general, we've also used a number of Moodle activities to digitalize other learner experience that were still paper-based and quite tedious and, let's say, problem generating. So one of our first hurdles was actually to change the culture and the expectations of what e-learning actually was, what it could do, and how it could be delivered. So moving people from this expectation that they front load a whole bunch of information, like PowerPoint slides and lecture-style delivery, and then deliver a quiz at the end that tests whether people have memorized this information, and then provide them with a certificate. And so that whole info quiz format to something a little bit more interactive. So trying to convince people that the information should only be there as necessary when you're asking people to make a whole bunch of decisions. So it's more of a starting point and then making a decision and making a decision and having to make a decision, because that's what they do in real life, and then having the information off to the side as and when they need it. And that could look as simple as the linear version that we had in the first screen that we just came from, or it lends itself to having complex decision matrix like this, where you could actually end up with several outcomes. And so that it's not just hand-holding you and leading you towards the correct outcome necessarily. You can actually have negative consequences and end up having to go back to the start or having to redo certain parts of the course, which emulates real life just a lot better and means that people retain what they learn, because if they've done something and they've made a wrong choice, they're more likely to remember what the correct choice was when they come across that situation in real life. So the
the process that we use, actually the model, to create in this first part of our presentation, actually the experience within the learning modules, is the action mapping model, which we haven't invented ourselves, but it's someone called Kathy Moore. We've put a link on our course site to her process. And so what it comes down to is that you always look for a measurable goal. So it's almost starting from the evaluation of your learning. What do you need to see change at the end of this training? What do you want people to do differently? And so from that measurable goal, you look at all the changes in behavior or the skills that you would need to achieve that goal. So you map those out. And from that, actually a mapping of the business problem that you're looking at, you will make practice activities so they can practice those behaviors that you want them to change. And the very last thing that you actually think about is feeding information into those practice activities. So the information actually comes last and is only focused on doing those practice activities. So obviously the courses we are making are very practical, since most of them are for nurses.
So this is just a quick screenshot examples. We use an authoring software called Articulate Storyline to create SCORM packages that we then host within our course. So most of our learning is done within that SCORM package, and we then get Moodle to take the grades out of the SCORM package, and we use things like conditional access and stuff like that we'll go through a little bit later. But that's why these screenshots don't look like Moodle, because they're not. But it is hosted in. But yeah, so this is an example of some of our SCORM packages, stuff that we've done based on that action mapping model. And this is more screenshots of what it looks like once we actually put courses together.
So the fact that we try to make really attractive and engaging courses with lots of decision making is obviously one first step in that learning experience. It's like it gives people that, let's say, that motivation to do them. We get people talk to each other like, actually, the fire awareness training, it was quite fun, go and do it. But so making those is only a first step. But if your learners have trouble accessing the system, finding their way in your courses, then your learning pieces can be fantastic, but if people have no way of getting to them easily. So that's why, and now we're moving into the Moodle side of things, that is why we are, we're still on the phone. We got reconnecting on our screen, but I'm on the phone, so I'm a bit confused. So now we get into the Moodle side of things, of how we have made sure that course experience becomes easier for people to, not just the content. So we stopped talking about storyline at this point.
Yeah. This is your point.
Yeah. So as our nurses are often short on time, we one of the things we've done is made the learning pieces quite short, 15 to 20 minutes. And in this case, you see our infection control course. And for our nurses often have to, go in and out of the e-learning because there's more pressing important matters like helping patients. And so we wanted to give them a good and fun way to see what their progress was on this course that has 5 modules. So we are using conditional activities in Moodle to actually swap out images. So if you come into this course originally, it will just have the 5 module buttons. But once you've done one module, we swap out the image of module 1 without a badge to give it the next badge. So it makes an artificial progress meter. And as soon as they've got the 5 images with the badges, the feedback and the certificate ones will come up. So, and we've made those badges map, badges that they kind of officially get in the storyline. So we make that one learner experience that all fits together, even though we're working in two different softwares.
So one of the struggles we had initially was that our users would get confused by the interface because we were requiring them to go to a course page, which they had to find first, and then go into a SCORM, and then from the SCORM they had to go back to the course page, and this was back when we had info quiz ones, but then from the course page they had to go to the quiz, and then they had to find their way back to the course page, and then they could go get their certificate. And one of the huge struggles we had was the SCORM packages that we, oh look, our power just came back on. Hooray! One of the struggles that we had was that our SCORM package file actually said, when it reached the end of the SCORM package, it said, you may now exit this course, close this window. Anyway, it's on the next screen, you'll see it. But that led to people accidentally exiting before they'd gotten to the quiz or the certificate, and that led to confusion, because then people would go, where did the course go? Am I done? What's going on? So it wasn't ideal. It was a pretty bad sort of user experience at that point. Yeah, that's right. I need to move this one on. So what we've got now for most of our courses is we've got a system where the user goes, the participant, whoever, goes to the course page, and then from there they click on that orange course button that you can see in the screenshot on the right and go to the SCORM package. But from the SCORM package, they're then taken straight to the feedback activity without need to go back to the course page. And from the feedback activity, they're taken straight to the certificate without the need to go back to the course page. So they go from SCORM to feedback to certificate. That's them then completed the course. They can do whatever they like. They can close the window. They can go to a different module. It doesn't matter. So that works fine when it's SCORM feedback certificate, those specific activities. One of the things we have encountered in Moodle is that lessons are a bit challenging. If we use a lesson in lieu of a quiz or something like that, the end of lesson page isn't editable. So we can't put in a nice big button in there that says, congratulations, now go back to, or go on to this or that or the other thing. And it won't record the student's score unless they reach the end of lesson page. So we're still working our way around that one, trying to figure out some way to get that to work for us.
Yeah, maybe an important thing, one of the solutions to that might be to change things in the language file, but we can't, since we are on a system that's shared by a number of DHBs, so we can't do site-wide changes.
No. So I'm going to go into some more detail about how we've actually customized the SCORM and the feedback activity to allow this continuous flow. So originally, this is called evolution of goodbye.html because there's a file within the SCORM package called goodbye.html, and that's the file that the SCORM package shows once the SCORM has ended. And by default, the package shows the content has ended, you may close this window. Now, that might work fine for SCORM packages that open in a new pop-up window, but it doesn't work very well in our system where we don't use pop-up windows because we have a very aggressive pop-up blockers. And so that was telling people to close the window. That was a very obvious problem right there. Then we discovered that you could actually edit that goodbye.html file. And so we changed it slightly to point people at the exit activity link that appears just above the top right of the SCORM package. But this was also a bit problematic because people couldn't find it. Our users are not that technically literate. And so they sometimes didn't realise that they had to scroll up, and sometimes they scrolled up too far, and they were actually looking in the top right corner of the screen, not just like the whole screen, not just the screen that the SCORM was in, and things like that. So it was still a little bit problematic. So eventually we through the use of some HTML and nice formatting, we made it look like that instead, that last box, which says course completed, and it's got a great big button right there that they can't miss that says continue to feedback and certificate. And that just has a link that goes directly to our feedback. So I'll go to the next content page. So some of the things that I will let you know in case it affects your ability to do this is we use Articulate Storyline 2. I'm not sure what other SCORM creation packages generate, but in Articulate, it generates an LMS folder within the zip file, and within that LMS folder is a goodbye.html file. And because Articulate Storyline only works on Windows, we use Windows. So again, if you're trying to use Mac and a different SCORM creation package, you might have to do some tinkering. But what we do is we copy that goodbye.html file out of that zip file. We just copy and paste it onto a desktop, edit it, and then copy and paste it directly back. And one of the things we found is that it will let us copy and paste the file directly back into the subfolder within the zip without having to unzip it. Brilliant. So what it looks like is this. So the top screenshot has what the original goodbye.html file looked like. And you can see if you look past all the code in red and yellow, it's got just some font that says content is ended, you may close this window. And then underneath that, we've got what I've altered. So there's a few things for those of you with a bit of HTML know-how that I found useful here. Is the link doesn't just go to the feedback module, it goes directly to the page where you submit your or answer the questions. Because if you link just to the feedback module, then the user gets taken to a page that has the feedback name, the introduction that you wrote in the description box, and then a link, a tiny little link in the middle of the page that says submit your answers. That's an extra click for the user, an unnecessary one. So we feed straight to the page that they get to when they click on the link that says submit your answers. And the other thing is for those of you who are trying to read the HTML code, is there's a little bit that says target equals _top in the link. Sort of, oh, that's right, I can indicate something with my little pointer here. So it starts here, target equals, and then it goes on to the next line, top. Now that breaks it out of the frame, because when the SCORM package ends and it displays this nice little file, it's still displaying it within the frame that the SCORM package was in. And if you then feed them to a different activity, it shows the whole Moodle site within that tiny little SCORM frame still. So we want to break it out of the frame. Other than that, the rest is just styling. Do you want to talk about feedback settings, or was that mine? Oh, it's mine. Okay, so the other part of the flow, so that was getting from the SCORM package to the feedback. The other part of the flow is the feedback straight to the certificate. And the great thing is that Moodle has built this directly into the feedback settings. So after submission is a section in the feedback settings, and there's a little bit that says link to next activity, and we have linked it directly to the certificate within the course. And what it then looks like after they've submitted is shown in that second screenshot. So they just get a green button that says continue, and that takes them straight to the certificate, which then has a button that says get your certificate. So we've tried to simplify it as much as possible. Oh, yes, yeah. All right.
So that whole flow makes the user experience way better and way easier. Now you might think like, why have we so much focus on the certificate? But that's the main thing that a lot of our learners are after, because like for nurses, it goes into their portfolio to prove their training. Yeah, so what I'm quickly going to talk about is what we are asking in the feedback, because there also we have improved the experience, so you get to it easier, so you're more compelled to fill it in, but we've also made it quite painless for people and to the point. So there used to be a few questions and then like a comment box, like any other comments on the course, and obviously most of the answers would be either blank or just like just having typed something to get through. So we needed feedback for ourselves and also make it easier for the learners. So we've got a few Likert scales that are very specific, and we also ask for the things that we think are important, like we want it to be engaging and fun and applicable to their jobs. And then to get something out of them that's more to the point than just a number, we ask them, tell us about one thing you liked and tell us about one thing you would change. And it proved to be really, really useful. So the one thing you liked gives us a really short answer from most people as to their preference, but also about some of the things they've learned. So which is great for us to do an evaluation of, did we go right with our action map model, and does one of those skills or one of those behaviors actually come out? And a lot of people inadvertently answer exactly what we came up with, so which is brilliant. And the one thing you would change also gives us very, very focused feedback on something that was a glitch or that they really didn't like or they couldn't find, or it's something they immediately remember after that. And so one thing, we don't get a big ramble, but we just get really good feedback for us to change little glitches in our packages. Okay. And so, yeah, first of all, we're just going to let you see the positive feedback because that's so nice. So a lot of it is about the content, where people really like the interactivities, the stories, and so on. But you see, for example, one that says new information, internal fire number, so that they really give us feedback about stuff they learn. The one we've got on the bottom tells us that they really liked the fact that it was sections and badges, and how it made them feel like it was not too long. So yeah, the easy navigation, we get a lot of feedback on that, so that helps us think that we're on the right way. So, but let us not keep you from the bad feedback. I must say, most of the bad feedback doesn't really have to do anything with the experience. Let's say we get the glitches, we get the problems, but then that people encountered, which we almost immediately change when we see them, you know, like this or that button didn't work, or I couldn't go to this one. But we also get some really cool stuff, like I don't like computers learning. Yeah, the one with the school children is also a nice one. You've seen that our e-learning is quite colorful. Yeah, so we get a few funny things, and it also teaches us. Yeah, I'd like to go back to the old method. You know, can we just have a quiz? Yeah, no. So a lot of the old e-learning that was in place allowed people to get through their e-learning in about 4 minutes, because they could just click next and then answer a few very obvious questions and get their certificate. Now, another thing we get from the positive and the negative feedback comparing to each other is that it's really hard to please all learners, as we all know. So we might get, for the same module, we get an amount of people saying this was too much information, and an equal amount of people saying I would like to have more information. So it's also something that you've got to learn with learner experience, I guess, is that there's no pleasing everybody. now we're moving into other stuff than the e-learning module.
Yes. So one of the things we've been talking about up until now is the experience of the user once they're within the course. But one of the things that we've also done is try to improve the experience that the learner has getting to the course. Because, for example, we have some things called nursing medication tests, which are all now done on the computer through Moodle, so that the results can be instantly seen and analysed and things like that. But there are a lot of them. And currently there are 44 separate courses just in this area, and they're broken down into 4 main categories. And we could have used the category structure within Moodle itself to break them down, but this was a lot, one of the things that we were talking about with the people we were setting this up with is that they wanted something that was a lot, looked a lot more user-friendly than that category structure in Moodle. So we've edited the category and just put in a table with background color in the cells. So these aren't images, except for that exclamation mark with the triangle. But that's just tables, colored cells, and links. And those links go to pages in an orphaned section within a course. And those pages have a nice, simple list of the courses, or I should say the medication tests available in that area. So we've tried to streamline this a little bit more to make it easier to find things. And the same with our competency assessments, which is a different thing to nursing medication tests, is we've taken the same sort of structure where we've broken it down into the categories and then made it a little bit more visually pleasing just by using the editing the way that the category description looks. But when you're actually within the course, this is the nursing medication test one, it looks very similar to our other e-learning courses. So we've tried to keep a consistency in the look and feel of the course so that users aren't having to deal with learning how this course is set out as opposed to other courses and things like that. And we try and keep our instructions and things to a minimum, because if you have to put a ton of instructions in, you haven't designed the course particularly well. With this particular one, we use the course completion status block on the left a little bit more than our other courses, because our other courses, the only completion that's tracked is the certificate, because that's the only thing that matters for them. We know that they've completed the course once they've completed the certificate. In this one, because this is a slightly different thing, it's a test rather than a course, people can track and keep an idea of which test they're up to when they come back to it later. They probably know anyway, but it's still a nice to have on the side. And then our competency assessments, we've used the close question type, in the quiz to try and emulate as much as possible the look and feel of their paper-based form. And most of the time, I would say trying to emulate a paper-based system in a digital system is a bad thing. But in this particular case, because it's the way that this test is run, where it's not actually the person who is being assessed who is doing it, they log in and then hand the tablet over to their assessor, who only needs to say met or not met for each of these competencies. This was the cleanest way we could find to do it, and it just happened to look very similar to the paper-based form. But the benefit of this over the paper-based form was that it couldn't get lost, and the moment it was submitted, the person who had been assessed could go and see how they did, and somebody later who needed to report on all these nurses who had done this competency just had to go into Moodle and go into the test results and export it into a format like Excel that's really easy for people who do reporting stuff and analyze all these reports. They're used to working with Excel, and so it's really, really great that that we've eliminated a data entry job effectively, where somebody would previously have had to gone through the paper-based form and manually enter all that data into a spreadsheet probably. So that's sort of part of our user experience, is streamlining the assessment process as well. We're fast today. We got through it quick today. We've had practice.
So obviously we don't finish here. There's a whole number of things that we still need to solve, and there will keep on, other things popping up. So one of the important ones that we've got since, as you might remember from the beginning, the compliance training was like a big thing, is that all those courses have to be annually repeated, and at the moment we have no real solution to make that easy for people to check whether they are due for their next going through a course, to have their compliance check. Since we are running Totara, not Moodle, we could use the learning paths, but we have a big constraint there in the sense that to make learning paths, yes, we need a really good organizational structure to come out of the HR system, and at the moment that is pretty broken. It's got all kinds of garbage data entry in there. Yes, as Miriam is typing, the word organ is supposed to be organizational structure, but for some reason it fell off. Yeah. We noticed that yesterday when we presented and then completely forgot it. Anyway, so one of the ways we are looking at solving that user experience, as long as we don't have the opportunity to use the learning paths based on roles, is by using badges, so that people could really see in their profiles, I've got the Infection Control 2016 badge, and now it's expired, so it's time to do my Infection Control 2017 badge. So they could just keep track of it by collecting badges. Another one that we still struggle with is losing passwords, because as in so many organizations, they have a different login and password for Moodle as they have to get into their computer. So there's, losing passwords left, right, and center, and also a big problem for some people to just use the lost password link. Then they don't copy paste, but try to type in the gibberish passwords they get back from Moodle. There's also that second email, which is a bit of a problem. Like you get an email, then you got to click on that. And so we also have a number of people who are not using their work email regularly because it's not part of their job. So they don't always have the option or the opportunity to get to their emails quickly. So implement a one-step password reset would be something that we would absolutely love.
But again, we're not site administrators, so we can't just go in and change settings. We have to negotiate this with all the other DHVs on the system.
Yeah. So the one-step password reset, and another option we are looking at the moment is automatic registration to kind of solve that problem between the login to the computer and the login.
Single sign-on.
Yes. Yeah, but with large government organizations like what we're working with, it's not a given.
And so that's it. Yeah. Any questions, comments, cries of pain or joy? And there's our contact details as well, our Twitter handles and our email addresses.
Total silence. I need a tumbleweed emoji. Oh. Thanks for coming, Tabitha. Hope you managed to hear us okay.
Hi, this is Vinny. I thought I'd just jump in and thank you both for presenting again at this year's iMoot. Informative and entertaining as always. So it's great to have you guys along. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the iMoot. Thank you.
Thank you, Vinny. Thank you.